Russia has come back knocking. India said no to the Su-57 earlier. Moscow has now returned with a much smaller and potentially much harder to refuse offer. 8 Su-57E 5th generation fighters, R-77M long-range air-to-air missiles, and a renewed push for technology transfer and production in India. Why 8? Because India doesn't need another giant fighter deal right now. It needs to plug a very real capability gap before its own 5th generation fighter, the AMCA, is ready. And Russia knows exactly where that gap is. The Indian Air Force is short of fighter squadrons. Tejas deliveries are still being ramped up, and AMCA is years away from being operational. So is Russia offering India the perfect stopgap? Or is the Su-57, this new deal, a shortcut that could end up complicating India's long-term air power plans? Let's take a look. According to defense reports, Russia has offered India an initial batch of 8 Su-57E 5th generation fighters. The pitch is deliberately small. No massive commitment up front. Get a handful of aircraft quickly. Put Indian pilots and technicians on them. Understand how the aircraft performs. Evaluate its maintenance and operational requirements, and then decide whether India wants more. That is a very different proposition from the much larger Russian offers reportedly discussed before this. At one stage, the conversation was about 40 to 60 aircraft off the shelf, followed by potentially much larger numbers through production in India. Now, it's down to 8. And that may be the whole point. 8 aircraft does not transform the Indian Air Force. But Russia gets the Su-57 inside the Indian system. The aircraft is only half the pitch. The other half is the weapon. Russia is offering the Su-57E with its R-77M beyond visual range air-to-air missile. Now, the publicly reported range of these missiles is around 200 kilometers. The missile uses an active radar seeker and a dual-pulse rocket motor designed to give it additional energy during the later stages of flight. Now, this is important because modern air combat is increasingly being fought at distances where the pilot may never visually see the opposing aircraft. And that is the logic behind the package. It comes at an interesting time for India too. Pakistan already operates Chinese-origin J-10CE fighters equipped with long-range air-to-air missiles. So Russia isn't simply saying buy our 5th generation fighter. Their pitch appears to be buy this fighter and get the long-range weapons ecosystem that goes with it. So why has Moscow dramatically reduced the size of the offer? Because 8 is easier to say yes to than 80. A small batch allows India to test the aircraft without making a multi-billion-dollar commitment to an entirely new fighter fleet. It also gives Russia something it badly wants, an Indian foothold for the Su-57. Get the aircraft into India, get Indian personnel trained on it, build operational familiarity, and keep the door open for a much larger deal, potentially involving local production and technology transfer. For India, meanwhile, the calculation is completely different. Does a small number of 5th generation fighters give the IAF a useful capability bridge, or does it simply create another fleet to operate, maintain, and fund? Because beneath this entire debate is one uncomfortable number, 42. That is the Indian Air Force's sanctioned fighter squadron strength. Its actual strength is significantly lower, around 30 squadrons or so. And the pressure is not going away. Older aircraft are being phased out. Tejas Mk-1A is still being inducted, and India's own 5th generation fighter AMCA is still some distance from operational service. The transition is taking place, but it's taking time. And China isn't waiting. China already has operational fifth generation fighters. And if Pakistan eventually acquires a Chinese fifth generation platform, India's security equation becomes even more complicated. And that is precisely the gap that Moscow is targeting. So the biggest question isn't whether India can buy 8 Su-57s. Of course it can. The question is, can 8 Su-57s help India make AMCA faster or make it easier to postpone AMCA? And that is why the Russian offer is so interesting. On the one side, immediate capability, a fifth generation platform, advanced sensors, low radar visibility, and long-range air-to-air weapons potentially available years before AMCA becomes operational. On the other hand, long-term dependence, a new fighter type means a new logistics chain, new training requirements, new maintenance infrastructure, and another foreign platform competing for scarce resources. And there is another issue. India has already been trying to reduce its dependence on imported defense platforms. So bringing in another foreign fifth generation fighter could look like a contradiction unless the deal delivers something that India values even more than the aircraft itself: technology. There is, however, one reason that India cannot dismiss this conversation casually, and that is China. Beijing is expanding its fifth generation fighter fleet, and China's growing air power capabilities are not limited to the aircraft themselves. They are part of a much larger ecosystem of sensors, missiles, drones, electronic warfare, and network warfare. India's AMCA will eventually be designed to counter precisely this changing threat environment. But eventually is the key word. Russia's pitch is basically telling India, what do you do in the years between now and AMCA? Wait or buy an interim capability? So the Su-57 question is not really about 8 Russian fighters. It is about how India manages the decade between its current fighter fleet and its fifth generation future. Russia is offering India a shortcut. India has its AMCA ambition, and the smartest option may not necessarily be to choose one over the other. It may come down to one simple test. Does the Su-57 make AMCA happen faster? If yes, Moscow may finally have a deal that Delhi can seriously consider. If not, the 8 Su-57s could end up being 8 very expensive reasons to delay India's own fifth generation dream. You're watching Times Access. I'm Aditi Prasad. Do click on the bell icon below to subscribe and never miss a Times Access update.
A nuclear weapon.
The old rules are breaking. Alliances are shifting.
Apologize again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Wars are redrawing maps. Oil routes can shake economies overnight. One election in America can impact markets in Mumbai.
No tax on tips.
One move by China can alter the balance in Asia. One conflict in West Asia can hit every Indian household. This is no longer a distant story. This is our story. Your story. Because for the first time in decades, India is not watching from the sidelines. India is rising. India is negotiating. India is balancing rivals. India is building military strength. India is shaping trade routes. India is becoming central to the new global order. And yet, most global news is still told through someone else's lens. Washington's lens, Beijing's lens, London's lens. But where is India's lens? Where is the platform that explains the world from our perspective? Welcome to India's Axis, a new destination for geopolitics, strategy and power seen through India's eyes. From Neighborhood Watch to the biggest global stories that matter to you. Why tensions in the Taiwan Strait matter to India. How one move by China can affect India's security. What turmoil in Pakistan means for regional stability. How Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bhutan shape India's neighborhood. Why oil choke points can hit your wallet. How wars abroad can reshape India's security. This is not noise. This is not shouting. This is not recycled headlines. This is sharp, intelligent storytelling. Daily explainers, war room analysis, strategic conversations. Because news is everywhere, but perspective is rare, and in the age of confusion, clarity is power. Axis is for the audience that wants more than headlines. The axis of global power is shifting. India is at the center of that shift. It's time the world was explained accordingly, to understand the world through India's strategic lens. Subscribe now.